Wouldn't it be amazing if the tree used to make the ingredient in your skincare was worth more alive than dead? It'd be incredible if keeping a forest standing created more value than cutting it down, not just in theory, but in real, measurable livelihoods for the people who live there. And that question sits at the heart of a much bigger shift happening in cosmetics right now. As the industry is being forced to rethink how cosmetics are made, including how we create beautiful texture and skin feel without relying on environmentally persistent shortcuts, new opportunities are opening up for plant-based systems, for sustainable sourcing, and for different ways of designing performance into formulations. So today I want to explore how cosmetic formulation can move into something far more powerful by using high-value botanical ingredients in a way that actively supports forest conservation. It's about keeping those trees and those plants alive and making them worth an awful lot more when they are alive to the people who live near them. So I've got a great conversation for you about formulation and economics and ecology all colliding, and what it would take for beauty products to genuinely help keep the world's forests alive. Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations, in which I challenge the beauty industry to become sustainable, champion independent and green beauty, and encourage you to join me in making beauty better. I'm your host, Lorraine Delmayer. I'm a chartered environmentalist, biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. We have tens of thousands of students in over 190 countries around the world who study with us to become organic beauty formulators and entrepreneurs. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com to try our free online formulation course. And if you want to be the first person to know what's happening in green beauty, make sure you subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. So in today's episode, I'm joined by John Goedschalk, the founder and CEO of BioTara, a company working at the intersection of natural cosmetic ingredients, formulation science, and forest conservation. Trained as an economist, John has spent over a decade in sustainability and policy and hands-on product development with a clear mission to make standing forest worth more alive than dead by enabling forest-based communities to trade directly with the global cosmetics industry. His work focuses on helping formulators move beyond single-ingredient thinking and instead design sensorial performance through natural lipid systems, informed by real formulation practice and evolving regulatory pressures around persistent materials. Drawing on his extensive experience with Amazonian butters and oils such as Tukuma and Murumuru and Cupuaçu and Andiroba, John is particularly interested in bridging formulation pragmatism with regenerative sourcing that delivers tangible benefits for people, for ecosystems, and for product performance. Hi, John. How are you doing today?
Lovely, Lorraine. Yourself?
I am good, and I'm really interested in telling your story to the world. So let's start with introductions. Could you please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Absolutely. I always like to start out by saying that I am a citizen of Suriname, the most forested country on Earth and one of only 3 carbon negative countries.
Wow.
And it's my self-appointed task, if you will, to keep it that way. So I decided about 15 years ago to make it my mission to protect our forests. And I've been doing that in a myriad of ways. I've worked for government, I've led NGOs. Now I'm a regenerative entrepreneur, if you will, or an impact entrepreneur, whatever the word of the day is. But really what it comes down to is that I am a citizen of Suriname, and for very selfish reasons, I have decided to dedicate my life to protecting the rainforest. And I say selfish because when people ask me, John, why do you care? I was like, because I want to have a good life.
Yeah.
I want my children to have a good life. And if we cut down the forest, guess what? We're not going to have that. So it's purely self-interest. I love sitting in the creek. I love drinking fresh water. I love being able to go outside, without, being burned away by the sun, which means I need cover from trees. So all of these different reasons are why I decided to dedicate my life to protecting nature. And within that, I do have a little bit of a preference for rainforest, which is where I grew up and what I love.
I love that. So you have a company called BioTara. What is BioTara? Can you introduce it to us?
Yeah. So BioTara, well, it begins with the word, right? The name. What does it mean? BioTara means bio-bridge, right? So what are we actually talking about? What is bio? What is biology? It's life, right? So we're bridging life. I call it a life's bridge, if you will. Why? Because we are connecting co-ops in Amazonia that are producing beautiful botanical ingredients, and we're connecting them with the global cosmetics industry. And the reason we're connecting them is so that the co-ops can earn a decent living by producing these ingredients. And by doing so, they are able to withstand the lure of converting their land to soy or to cattle. So essentially what we're trying to do with BioTara is we are creating the economic impetus for forest conservation, not based on philanthropy or tree hugging, but based on simple supply side economics. If we can get the cosmetics industry to significantly start using these ingredients, then that will create the economic impetus for protecting these forests. And that, again, can serve to us actually surviving this onslaught that we're currently experiencing in the Amazon, right? Because deforestation is rampant, it's increasing. Here where I live in Suriname, deforestation has doubled over the past couple of years. And it's very simple. People are saying, listen, we need to eat, okay? And if that means we got to cut down the tree, then that's what we're going to do, which is where we come in. And by joining forces with the cosmetics industry and by getting them to use their sourcing power for good, I believe we can start really making a difference in land use choices in the Amazon.
Amazing.
That is our purpose.
Walk me through what kind of ingredients are made then that you guys connect the cosmetics industry to. Let's get everyone excited by all these amazing botanicals.
Let's get in there. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to not too much, but a little bit how this started, right? So this whole drive of connecting cosmetics and the Amazon rainforest came forth out of a project I did when I was leading Conservation International. I was in the forest of Suriname, so in the Amazon rainforest, and we were talking with an indigenous leader, a captain of a village. And we asked him, what does he need to protect the rainforest? And he said, Mr. Goedschalk, it's very simple. I need jobs. Without jobs, the youth are leaving, and people are turning towards gold mining, which is poisoning our creeks. But we don't have any jobs here because there's no industry. There's no connection to the city. So we need jobs. I said, okay, so then how do we do that? And he said, well, we have 7,000 Brazil nut trees. 7,000 Brazil nut trees. Okay, so what can you do with that?
Yeah.
And he said, that's what we're asking you, Mr. Goedschalk. You want us to protect? Well, then we're going to need help because we need income. We need livelihoods. So we worked together with UC Berkeley, California. A bunch of really smart students came out here and they did the study and they came back and said, Mr. Goedschalk, what we should do is we should work with the community to produce Brazil nut oil in the village. I said, okay, but why? He said, well, Brazil nut oil is high grade input for cosmetics industry. The demand for it's growing worldwide. It's very simple to make and culturally appropriate because the communities already make it, albeit artisanally. And it carries well. So you can fly it over and it already has a high value. And when you have to use small charter planes to transport these types of goods, you want high value goods. So for all those reasons, we said, okay, let's go. And we did it. We set up this factory in the middle of the Amazon rainforest to produce Brazil nut oil, cosmetic grade. We were successful. And during COVID, this village was able to import their own food because they had money in the bank. And when that happened, it was like, it's this light bulb. It's like, holy shit, that's, for me at least, I'm an economist, so maybe that's why what triggers me. And I was like, wow, if we now have found a way to get communities to bring back their agency and to give them economic power, that's the game. So I said, that's what I want to do. I want to build 100 of those types of processing plants throughout Amazonia. So I resigned to do that. I resigned my directorship position at Conservation International. I said, that's it. I'm going in. I'm going all in. And that's what this is. So we're working with Brazil nut oil, which is beautiful, of course. I think many people already know it. The Bertholletia excelsa tree, which, by the way, is also one of the guardians of the rainforest. The Bertholletia excelsa is one of the highest trees in the Amazon and one of the most important water transportation mechanisms. Okay? Without that tree, there would be no Amazon. Not as we know it, at least. So that means we need to make sure we protect that tree and we don't cut it down for other things, which is why we want to have this regenerative system of harvesting from these trees. So Brazil nut oil. We can do the exact same for murumuru, for tucumã, for andiroba, açaí oil, ucuba. Oh my God, we have beautiful ingredients from colorifics all the way to butters to scrubs. Some of them are incredibly antimicrobial. Others are incredibly antioxidative. I mean, it's just what you need. And that's the beauty of it. We are offering an entire toolkit to the global industry, to the global cosmetics industry to say, listen, you don't need to work with these PFAS or these silicones to get the effect you need. You can build the same sensory experience, maybe even better, without the permanent pollution. All of our ingredients are fully metabolizable. They break down, they get absorbed by your skin. And you can eat them if you like. You could eat them or drink them because they're fully natural ingredients. Our ingredients. I don't know about your final product.
And there are many, many beautiful oils and butters and other ingredients from the Amazon. So I can imagine you just have this incredible toolkit there. How many communities or cooperatives are you working with then? What scale are we at?
Well, we're actually quite small still. Well, we're at 2 cooperatives right now, and that covers about 130,000 hectares. So that's 260,000 football fields, if you will, or soccer fields, I guess, which is good, but not nearly what we're aiming for. We want to do 4 million hectares within 10 years.
I love that. I love that. And you say small. I mean, maybe small in the number of cooperatives, but certainly not small in the footprint that you already have. That is incredible.
Yeah, because these areas are huge. See, what people maybe don't always quite grasp is Amazonia is huge. I mean, the forest there is majestic, powerful, and most of all, colossal. I mean, it is big. We are talking about, there are some communities, cooperatives that manage their own lands that manage millions of hectares. Millions. So getting the right co-op on board and having the right impact, it can go really quick. So we're at 130,000 hectares now, but we can go very quick.
That's amazing. And presumably as word starts to spread, more cooperatives will start to be formed and more people will want to come on board as well. What sort of impact would you say you've had so far? Because you've been going for a few years now. You've obviously, 130,000 hectares isn't nothing. That's quite a bit. How are you maintaining an overview of the impact that you're having?
So we have 3 systems we use for that. Actually, 4. First is just on the ground, sitting down with the people on a very regular basis to gauge the impact it's having on the social cohesion, right? So it's really important that as you bring enterprise into forest-based communities, you need to understand that you're bringing in a kind of a free radical, right? You're introducing something new. So you need to really gauge and pay attention to what's happening. Are some families maybe starting to benefit too much as opposed to others? Is the money going into the right things? So that is on the ground practical monitoring and reporting. That's how we measure our social impact. Very practical. I'm with the communities every quarter. Every quarter I am with the communities and I have a team on the ground that visits them constantly. So every chance we get to do training, to be in there with them, to plant together with them. I have lots of pictures, by the way, of us doing that together. So it's a lot of fun as well. Because what we do is we create the relationship directly with the company, right? So when we go there, we kind of have them talk to one another as well. So we create that bond. So you can see it. So that's the one. Then we also have a full traceability system, which allows us to, we're using a QR code, show you exactly down to the tree plot where your ingredients came from, as well as which families collected, how much they earned, what their level of education is. If they're male or female, their age, all of it is monitored. Then the third one is we use a remote sensing solution to monitor the health of the vegetation, the forest cover, and the biodiversity, as well as the carbon storage and the water storage. And then finally, every order that we produce at scale, I should say, gets its own life cycle carbon assessment. So you can see your batch of X kilos generated this much carbon. And in our case, it shows you how much it's sequestered because our ingredients are by design carbon negative. At the end of our production cycle, we have absorbed more carbon and buried it into the ground than before we started.
Amazing. I love all these tools you've put in place. You can see that you obviously come from a background of wanting to monitor outcome and impact as well. And I love that you've built this in because it's so valuable in being able to show people what the impact is as well, and presumably helpful in getting other communities on board too.
Listen, the communities are standing in line. Like we are having to hold them off right now. Yeah, because they've heard. They've heard BioTara's in town and we're doing business with likes of Colgate, Palmolive, with others like Aveda, we're in talks with, I just got off a phone call with Lush, so we're very much in the scene. And the communities are looking for what we're offering, because what we're offering is a connection, a door, if you will, to the outside world.
Yeah. What do you think is going to attract the big industry players to BioTara? Because you want to output bulk, right? You want to get as much out of these communities as possible and support them as much as possible, and obviously prop up the forest. What attracts the big players?
Okay, so what I found, so again, we're still a startup, right? This is year 3. Now, what I found, Lorraine, is that a lot of the things that I'm offering, the very largest companies already have it, right? Say the Colgates of the world, the L'Oreals, they have their traceability systems. They have their life cycle carbon assessments. They've got their social safeguards in place. So that's not quite as interesting for them. For them, really what they want is security. That's what they want. They want security in their supply chains, because the big boys, for them to make a move, takes 2 to 3 years. So they don't want to have to be switching suppliers all the time, because it's a huge investment to onboard them. So I've learned that what they really need is stability, and they need visibility into the process. So that's what I've learned in terms of the big players. Now, what I've also learned is no matter how much people like BioTara, no matter how much they applaud our mission, there are time constraints, period. We did a successful pilot with Colgate Palmolive. So you would think, all right, great, so let's go. Nope, still need to do consumer testing, still need to do brand alignment, still need to do all of these inventory management elements. So even when you're successful, it can take 2 to 3 years to actually start delivering orders at scale. Why is it so important that we have orders at scale? Because when you're in a community situation and you depend on the forest for your income, you can't live like that without security of what you're going to be able to sell next year, right? Because it takes a season. You need to prepare, right? You need to do all these things. So if you don't get that security, then you're going to have to do something else, which can quickly become soy or cattle or whatnot. So it needs to be dependable, predictable supply at scale that's being purchased. So that means you're talking to the tons, right? 100 kilos minimum, 1 ton, 5 tons. Now, that doesn't mean, Lorraine, that our ingredients are beyond reach for let's say, others that might need smaller volumes.
That was going to be my next question.
No, we have a solution for them.
Yeah.
But they won't be able to have this really deep relationship with the communities, right? Because to do that, you're going to have to order at least 100 kilos or more, because then you get your own batch produced with your own data stream with all the traceability, right? Whereas if you do smaller volumes like 5 or 10 kilos, you can buy it from us, but it have to be from the online store. Now we have an online store, biotara.earth, and you can buy up to 5 kilos. Now, we don't do 30, 50, 60 like online, because it's not our core business. Like we have to do it to stay alive, right? Because we have to put bread on the table while we work with these giants, right? We have to put bread on the table while we wait for those big orders to come in, but it's not our mainstay. It's not our focus, because again, the volatility of a lot of small orders is killing for community planning. Now, if you're a regular factory, it doesn't matter. But when you're a community and people being able to go to school actually depends on whether or not there's an order, it's very different.
Yeah, I totally get it. One question I had for you is, obviously dependability is a really important component. But the other thing that we have previously talked on when we met before was the fact that some of the ingredients that come through the cooperatives and the communities that you work with can replace sort of traditional synthetic ingredients that the industry is trying to move away from as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So what happened is when we started this enterprise, we started looking at what will move the needle, what will actually drive industry. And we concluded that regulatory pressure would be one of the most important ones. So we looked at that. Turns out that there are a few very important elements to formulations and you, of course, know this, and I learned this also in your course, by the way, Lorraine, so thank you for that. I think taking your course really inspired a lot of our thinking, is to really think about this in terms of a base, a body, and a homogenizer, right? So when you look at it that way, you could actually get to understand that we're not looking at just replacing ingredients, we're looking at replacing the whole thinking around how you formulate. Whereas over the last 50 years, we've been formulating a lot with silicones to create certain sensory experiences like texture and slip, we can get the same effect with fully metabolizable ingredients. What do I mean by that? By ingredients that fully are either absorbed or break down. Whereas the silicones, the thinking was, let's create something that's durable and that won't break down to maintain the structure. So we were successful in that. But the problem is, once you wash it away, or when you absorb it through your skin in osmosis, it's in, like, forever, which is why they're forever chemicals, right? So we've learned that we need to get away from those, and those have been banned. So the regulatory agency, the ECH, the European Chemical Agency, has banned the use of silicone D4 as of last year, I believe, or 2 years ago, down to 0.1%, D5 this year, down to 0.1%, and D6 next year. So these three silicones, which my understanding is that they have been key building blocks for formulators for the last 50 or more years, are now no longer permitted. So how do you account for that? How do you replace that? And that's where we offer a new way to build formulas, a new way of formulating. And we call it the Amazonia lipid architecture. Why? We say it's not an ingredient. It's a way of thinking about using fats together, a mix of saturated and unsaturated, to create certain levels of viscosity and melt and feel that you mix in, for example, murumuru, Brazil nut oil, and a little bit of tocopherol, you're good to go. And you have a beautiful body butter that you can use, like this one we have. Like, I developed this and I experienced it myself. So this is a body butter, fully natural. As soon as you take it out and you start to spread it out, it starts breaking down. But like I told you earlier, what I like about this, and so this is the butter, I guess you can see it a little bit.
For everyone who's listening to the podcast, this is predominantly an audio podcast. John is holding up a jar and showing us a lovely body butter.
Yeah, and this is what I like to do. You can eat it, and it's fine.
I have to admit, I've not eaten my body butter before.
Lavender, lovely.
Yes, indeed.
No, but I just to show, like, this is what we're talking about, right? So we're saying, let's get away from these permanent constructions. Let's get into transitory structures that melt or disintegrate as you apply heat and friction. So it only exists for as long as you need it to exist, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Isn't that absolutely stunning? And everyone listening will identify with your message as well, because we're followed by natural formulators all over the world who are, you're preaching to the converted here, I think, but that's lovely. I mean, conservation and cosmetic historically obviously sit together. So what did you see in the cosmetics supply chain in particular that made you think, actually, this could protect forests? Because most people would think food or pharma or I don't know.
Yeah. So this is the thing, Lorraine. I am not a huge fan of promoting food production in primary rainforest, because the only way to do that at scale is by cutting it down and converting it to monoculture, which is not something that I stand for. So food, by definition, is insatiable, right? Because we, as humankind, are insatiable because we are growing. So we're always going to need more. So it's always going to be growth, 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 unlimited, so to speak. Which means that you're going to need big machines, which means you're going to have big capital, which again will exclude the local communities from participating as owners, but only as employees. And I want them to own these businesses. I want them to have agency, because that's the only way I believe that it'll be sustainable, because I can't be going there for the next 50 years. I could go there for a while, but I need to phase out because I don't live there. I need to be here, and they need to live their lives. So that's why it's so important that I personally think, we don't look at these large, multi-billion-dollar industries that need to be created. I like looking at smaller volumes, which is cosmetics. Cosmetics use smaller volumes, but they also pay higher prices. So I like the fact that cosmetics needs low volumes, high prices, and I happen to believe that nature-based ingredients is how cosmetics began in the past. So it's become this chemical thing, but it's not how it started. If you go back to Egypt and you look at how Cleopatra made her own lipstick using rose petals and just a little bit of olive oil, that's what it was. We used to be nature-based as an industry. And I'm saying, come back. I'm saying we went out there with chemicals for a while. We see that it's not necessarily healthy for us or our environment. Let's go back to nature. That is the call that BioTara is putting out there. Come back to nature. Come back home where it's healthy, where we have ingredients that are never going to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars, but nor do they need to be. We don't need that. We don't need to be the next Microsoft. We don't want to be the next Microsoft. We want enough, right? So that means, again, I like to have 100 communities or co-ops connected, each doing maybe $1 to 2, maybe $3 million of revenue a year, because that's enough. It's enough for people to have a good life. And that's all they want. Honestly, the people living in the forest, they're not trying to all be billionaires and millionaires like a lot of us today. You know, they want to enjoy life, enjoy nature, and be left alone a lot of times. You know, just be respectful. Honestly.
I'm
Honestly,
laughing. I'm like, yeah, I'd quite like if people just left me alone. No, I understand. I mean, are there any particular success stories that have come out of the community that are especially important or memorable to you?
Absolutely. Okay. Last year, and again, this was only our second year, right? Because we're a startup. So last year, we won this prize with an accelerator that enabled us to work with Colgate-Palmolive. We were in Camtawa, which was the first community in Brazil that we signed up, and they were working with another buyer. However, this buyer didn't place an order for Tucumã butter for the entire year. So effectively, the supply chain was in danger of breaking. Right? You break a chain. Like when you stop ordering, people are stuck without jobs and income, and they're left having to leave and do other things. So all the training and everything. And in this case, we were able to step in and place an order for 500 kilograms of Tucumã butter, thereby saving the chain, so to speak, and providing the basis for income that allowed people to earn what they needed to care for their children, for school, for medicine, you name it. And that was it was such a privilege to be able to do that, to be a part of that. Yeah. So I'm super proud. So that was last year. And then also at Kamtawa, we were able to capture another order from this indie brand out in Los Angeles. And then we were able to go into the field and kind of connect them and do this whole interactive day where they were in Los Angeles dialing in via Zoom. I was in the co-op and we were talking and yeah. So it was amazing. I love that stuff. I love making that connection.
I love that. And I'm sure that's having quite a profound impact on the communities that you're working with as well. One question I have for you is, you said your goal is to make standing forests worth more alive than dead, which is wonderful. What has to be true economically for that to actually work at scale?
So you need to have continuity, which is what we talked about earlier, that repetition. Enough money. I'm sorry, but that's it. It needs to compete. So that's why the calculations that I'm sharing with you are roughly more or less this, right? So one co-op is roughly 100 employees. If every employee earns roughly $10,000 a year, that's roughly $1 million. So what I'm saying is I want to make sure that the people who come there earn at least, let's say, $10,000 a year, which for you and me living in industrialized areas might be difficult to kind of get around with. But if you're living in the forest and you're planting your own food and you've got all these other things, that's actually quite significant. And of course, it's not the only source of their income, right? Let's not pretend like these other things don't exist, but it is a main source. So that's kind of like how I've been calculating it and saying, okay, so if all of these things are true, I want to work with 10,000 families. That's my goal. So my big metrics, Lorraine, are 4 million hectares, 100 cooperatives, 10,000 families.
Love it. I love it.
Those are my three numbers. And that's what we keep repeating every day in and day out. And that's what we're going towards.
That sounds amazing. What a fantastic, ambitious goal. And I very, very much hope and expect that you will get there with the level of passion and positivity that you're putting into this. In 10 years, I mean, you've already sort of alluded to it. You want the 4 million hectares, the 10,000 families. What else would success look like for you?
Making it so that BioTara is no longer needed within 20 years. I would like us to be just like the ALA ingredients. I like this to be a transitory mechanism where at the end of it, the communities can thank us and say, thank you, John. We no longer need you. Good luck. That is my dream, to make myself obsolete, because that way they can do their thing, protecting the forest, making sure it's safe. And I can be here in Suriname, enjoying the fruits of the creek and the rivers and the rainfall and all these other things that Mother Nature provides.
And the healthy air and the clean water. I completely get it. That's where we all need to get to. John, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Where can people find out more about BioTara? Where can they come and buy from your online shop? Okay. How does it all work?
A couple of things. If you're interested, a couple of things, right? So first off, you can find us at In Cosmetic in Paris in April. Before that, you can find us at the Sustainable Cosmetics Forum in Amsterdam in March. You can always find us online at biotara.earth or biotara.com, if you will. Both will bring us to the same site. And we're around, and I am...
Your online shop is on biotara.earth as well, right?
Yes. Okay. So we have an online shop where you can either order samples to play around with, or if you already know the ingredients and you're just missing just a little bit of ukuba, or you need a little bit of murumuru, or a little bit of anjiroba, or burichi, the people who know, they know. So those folks can just come online and order up to 5 kilos, and it'll be delivered within Europe the next day.
Wow. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah, we have a fulfillment facility in Amsterdam. So from there we can provide quite a quick service to the people in Europe.
Fantastic. We will include your links in the show notes. They are underneath this episode. So go and give it a click. Go and have a look at BioTara. John, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. I love what you're doing. I wish you all the success in the world. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Lorraine.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Is this an approach that you would love to see more people in the beauty industry take? Leave us a comment on our social channels, as both the Formula Botanica team and I love hearing from you. And if you want to hear some more episodes about the topics we discussed today, please do delve back into the podcast archives. We have over 300 episodes for you to go and listen to. And some great examples include episode 289, in which I spoke to Asa Sigutan about the way that he's restoring Hawaii's forests with sustainable sandalwood. Asa and John are very aligned in their thinking and doing very inspiring work, both of them, so please do go and check that episode out. Or episode 255, in which I interviewed Chloe Valet of Prime Green about the ways that they're working with Amazonian suppliers of various amazing ingredients and how they're supporting communities in becoming suppliers to the cosmetics industry. There is a wealth of information in our old episodes, and I do encourage you to go back and listen to them. Thank you for joining John and I for this latest episode of Green Beauty Conversations. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave us a 5-star review so that other people can enjoy these conversations too. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your favourite podcast app is, and stay tuned for the next episode. Follow Formula Botanica at Formula Botanica on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, we're everywhere. And come and give me a follow at Lorraine Dahlmeier on Instagram and LinkedIn. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com and sign up for our free online formulation course today.